Welcome to World News Program. I'm your host, Melissa Khamilat, and these are the headlines. President Tebboune announces opening of Algerian embassy in Guinea-Bissau. Also in our news, the UN Security Council hails Algeria's role in Mali. Iraq's prime minister threatens to leave his office, then the president calls for early elections if the violence continues. And following a show cause notice, the former Prime Minister Imran Khan will appear before the Islamabad High Court over contempt charges. Mikhail Gorbachev, last Soviet leader, dies aged 91. First, in our world news, Algerian President Abdelmajid Tebboune said that Algeria and Guinea-Bissau are tied by a common history, adding in a press conference after receiving the president of Guinea-Bissau, Umaro Sissoko Embalo, that Algeria has always been the destination of African revolutionaries and that some circumstances estrange the two countries.
This visit reminds us of the history of Africa and the common history between Algeria and Guinea-Bissau. We as young people at the time remember the quote from Amilcar Cabral: Muslims go on pilgrimage to Mecca, Christians to the Vatican, and revolutionaries to Algiers. This being Mecca of the revolutionaries. We grow with Guinea-Bissau with this mentality. Our two countries have gone through a situation that has estranged them. But from this visit, our bilateral relations will return to normal.
President of the Republic Abdelmajid Tebboune announced the opening of an Algerian embassy in Guinea-Bissau, hoping that Guinea-Bissau president would pay Algeria a state visit soon.
As I said to my brother President of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau, Umaro Sissoko Embalo, that it was inconceivable that Algeria does not have an embassy in Guinea-Bissau. I hope that you will carry out, as agreed, a state visit in Algeria as soon as possible to allow things to return to normal.
For his part, the Guinean president said that Algeria plays an important pivotal role in anchoring African unity and peace in the continent, hailing the opening of the Algerian embassy in Guinea-Bissau.
I would like to express to you our affection and our desire to strengthen relations between our two countries and to revitalize their ties, especially since the role of Algeria is central and important in the establishment of the ties of African unity, the fight against terrorism, and the establishment of security and stability on the continent. I express my joy over the fact that you are opening an embassy in our country, and I accept to make a state visit to Algeria this year.
The President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, met on Tuesday at the headquarters of the Presidency of the Republic, face-to-face with the President of the Republic of Guinea-Bissau, Umaro Sissoko Embalo, who is on an official visit to Algeria. Previously, President Tebboune had reserved an official welcome to his counterpart from Guinea-Bissau at the building of the Presidency. It's worth mentioning that President Sissoko Embalo started a two-day visit to Algeria on Monday. The UN Security Council hailed the role played by Algeria and the other members of the international mediation team led by Algeria in helping the Malian parties to implement the agreement for peace and reconciliation in Mali. The Security Council also recalled the centrality of the provisions of the agreement for peace and reconciliation in Mali, resulting from the Algiers process. And to a different matter, following clashes in Tripoli, Under Secretary General for Political and Peace Building Affairs, Rosemary DiCarlo, told the Security Council, that she was concerned about the continued delays in implementing elections and expressed worries about further possible violence. Last week's heavy fire and shelling in several areas of the capital resulted in the killing of 32 people, making the international community concerned about the situation in Libya.
I am deeply concerned that the ongoing stalemate and continued delays in implementing the electoral process pose a growing threat to security in and around Tripoli and potentially to all Libyans.
Calm returned to Iraq's capital following riots engulfed Baghdad's green zone. El Sadr addressed the Iraqi nation and apologized about the violence which left which left many people dead. Meanwhile, Iraq's prime minister has threatened to leave his office, and the president called for early elections if the violence continues. Islam Said has more.
The situation in Baghdad returned to calm on Tuesday afternoon after Muqtada Sadr ordered his followers to withdraw from the capital's green zone. Sadr condemned the violence and apologized to Iraqi people about the losses, in which at least 35 people have been killed during the clashes.
I apologize to the Iraqi people, since they are the only ones affected by what is happening. The revolution that has been stained by violence is not a revolution.
On the same day, Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi threatened that he will leave his post as a prime minister if the political crisis in the country continues. Al-Kadhimi suspended cabinet sessions until further notice after protesters broke into the government headquarters.
And I warn that from now on, if they want to continue to stir up chaos, conflict, discord and strife, and not listen to the voice of reason, I will take my moral and patriotic steps by announcing the vacancy of the position as Prime Minister at the appropriate time.
Meanwhile, Iraqi President Barham Saleh hailed the step taken to end the violence in Iraq, but warned that the political crisis was not over and called for early elections.
The current situation is unacceptable and can't continue. This is why the holding of early new election is accordance with the national understanding represents a way out of stifling crisis in the country.
A video showed trespassers swimming in the Palatial pool in Baghdad's green zone on Monday, after military reinforcements allegedly failed to hold the protesters back. Anarchy occupied the green zone as followers of Assad clashed with security forces in the country's power center after he said he was withdrawing from political life, a decision which led to the deadliest violence in the Iraqi capital in years.
Now joining us, Iraqi Dr. Nasir Duraid, political analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Sir, Iraq Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kadhimi on Tuesday said he will vacate his post if the complicated political situation in the country continues. Do you think it is a serious threat from al-Kadhimi, or is it a pressure to stop the fighting or to sit at the negotiating table?
Well, I don't believe neither of those are correct about Kadhimi, because Kadhimi really reads to threat other peoples or other parties in Iraq much earlier than now. It's now a completely chaos in Iraq, and thanks for Kadhimi not working for anything or not solving any problems. Now he is considering our demands as an Iraqi people for him to resign, at least to just keep the prestige of his position. Unfortunately, nobody is care about his leaving or staying at his position as prime minister. Nobody is really considering him a real prime minister. So I don't think it is now it will do anything good for Iraq now, his threat.
Mr. Nasir Duraid, Iraqi President Barham Saleh encouraged early legislative elections to settle a political crisis that escalated into deadly clashes this week, leaving dozens dead and hundreds more wounded. How successful would the response of the conflicting parties be, especially the coordination framework and the Sadrist movement?
Well, I believe many political parties now understand the importance of the re-election or the putting new election, not because of Mr. Barham Saleh said that, but before that for a long time. But the problem is how to do it, because our parliament now cannot get a one session to decide this matter. and because al-Sadr prevent that session. And from other side, there's no other way to do it. So we are here facing a constitutional problem with this issue.
Political analyst Dr. Nasser Duraid, thank you for being with us. To a different matter now, the Supreme Court of Kenya announced on Tuesday that it had retained 9 subjects to be examined in appeals challenging the results of the August 9th professional or presidential, election, including suspicions of fraud and piracy. Vice President William Ruto was declared the winner by the Independent Electoral Commission by 50.49% against 48.85% to Raila Odinga. Heavy rain continued to pound in India's Karmatanka city on Tuesday. Rafts were used to evacuate these stranded residents as several residential areas were waterlogged and inundated. The Indian Meteorological Department has warned of heavy downpour for the next 3 days in the state. On Wednesday, G20 environment ministers gathered on the island of Bali for climate talks. Indonesia, the summit's host and the current G20 chair, issued a warning urging nations to work together to halt, global warming before the planet reaches a point where no future will be sustainable.
We know that climate change could become an amplifier and multiplier of the crisis. It would not only wipe out all development progress that has been achieved over the past decades, particularly in emerging economies, but it would also propel us over an environmental tipping point into uncharted territory where no future will be sustainable.
During a meeting with the Spanish Prime Minister, the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz defended his position favoring an increase in energy interconnections in the EU, particularly in the Midgas pipeline project. This comes as Europe is trying to find alternatives to the Russian gas supplies. Nabil Khazini compiled this report for us.
The German Chancellor Olaf Scholz reiterated on Tuesday his strong support for a gas pipeline through the Pyrenees in order to improve the interconnections of the gas network in Europe against the backdrop of the ongoing energy crisis.
Aber es wird eben auch darum gehen, dass wir die Möglichkeiten, die in
But it will also be about making use of the opportunities that exist in Europe. Spain and Portugal will be countries that can produce a surplus, and it would be important for these countries, but also for all of us, that these production capacities can actually be used. We're learning in the current crisis that one thing always helps if we link, connect, network with each other as much as possible.
mehr Stabilität für unsere Gesellschaften und Volkswirtschaften.
The gas pipeline project is called the MidCat and would connect southern France and northeastern Spain. The pipeline would allow the transportation of the surplus of the Algerian gas coming to Spain to Central Europe via France. Algeria is one of the most important supplier of gas to Spain. The Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, whose decisions concerning Western Sahara was based on weak foundations, showed a step back during his meeting with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and expressed his willingness to visit Algeria.
Y respecto a Argelia, le diré que a mí me encantaría ser yo el que fuera Argelia.
Launched in 2013, the MidCat project was abandoned in 2019 by Paris and Madrid due to its environmental impact and low economic interest. However, the war in Ukraine and Russian threats to stop gas supplies to the EU have put the project back on the table. Now, France says it is open to reviving the gas pipeline project that could link Spain and Germany.
An inspection team from the International Atomic Energy Agency is on its way to the nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia, which has been the target of bombardments for several weeks. The largest nuclear power plant in Europe is in the hands of the Russian army since the beginning of March.
Дуже дякую сьогодні приїзду місії.
I am very grateful today for the arrival of the International Atomic Energy Agency mission in Ukraine. This is probably one of the highest priority issues concerning the security of Ukraine and the world today, due to the occupation of our nuclear power plant in Zaporizhia by Russian soldiers and the establishment of a high risk of a potential explosion.
Ми хочемо, щоб місія
We want the IAEA mission, led by Director Grossi, to find a way, through our special services and security corridors, to reach the plant and do the maximum to avoid all dangers on a global scale.
станцію.
Iranian Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian holds talks in Moscow with top Russian officials, including his counterpart Sergei Lavrov. The talks include issues such as the unconditional revival of the 2015 nuclear deal, as well as the critical situation in Zaporizhia nuclear plant, in which Abdullahian expressed worries over the situation there. The Russian gas giant Gazprom has suspended this Wednesday until September 3rd the supply of gas to Germany through the Nord Stream gas pipeline for maintenance work on the only pumping equipment in operation of the infrastructure. Hossein Berkan has more.
Russian Energy Gazprom cut off its gas supplies to Germany through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline for maintenance work on Wednesday, further raising tensions in an already tense energy market. Gazprom said that the 3-day works at the compressor station are necessary, adding that they will be carried out after every 1,000 operating hours. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky responded, accusing Russia of economic terrorism.
Russia uses economic terror, pressures with price crises and poverty to weaken Europe just when it needs its full strength to defend against the terror at war that Russia has been conducting for over 6 months.
In the German coastal city of Lubmin, where Nord Stream 1 comes ashore, plans are already underway to switch to liquefied natural gas. Bavarian state premier says Germany's current problem is that it has no adequate answer to Russian President Vladimir Putin's game with energy.
Putin is playing a game with Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2. I think it's kind of a game. Our problem right now is that we are not in a position to adequately respond to this game. That's the task ahead of us, to try and inject as much as possible.
Europe is suffering from rising energy prices as Russia cut its gas deliveries following its special military operation in Ukraine. Gazprom had already carried out 10 days of long-scheduled maintenance work in July. Although it restored gas flows after the work is done, it drastically reduced supplies only a few days later, citing a technical problem with the turbines.
A United Nations chartered ship carrying 23,000 metric tons of Ukrainian grain arrived in East Africa on Tuesday, bringing much-needed food at a time when aid agencies are warning of famine in the region. The UN's World Food Programme said the shipment would provide enough grain to feed 1.5 million people for a month, with Ethiopia said to be the main recipient. But it is not enough, I say, for a country facing several humanitarian challenges. Taiwan's forces said in a statement that troops fired warning shots at drones from China flying over its outposts just off the Chinese coastline. The incident comes amid heightened tensions after China fired missiles into the sea and sent planes and ships across the divided line in the Taiwan Strait following the visit of the U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in the island. Doug Ducey, U.S. Arizona governor, arrived in Taiwan on Tuesday for a visit focused on semiconductors. American states are competing to attract a multi-billion-dollar wave of investment in chip factories. The chips the island manufactures are the center of the mounting tech rivalry between the United States and China. Japan will develop and mass-produce a cruise missile and a high-velocity ballistic missile as it seeks the ability to strike more distant targets as part of a military expansion aimed at meeting threats from China and Russia. Despite assurances from Trump's representatives that they had thoroughly searched the property, the Justice Department said Tuesday that it had discovered attempts to obstruct its investigation in the discovery of classified documents at Donald Trump's Florida estate. It claimed that the government records were likely concealed and removed from a storage room. Following a show cause notice, the former Prime Minister Imran Khan will appear before the Islamabad High Court over contempt charges. According to officials, Khan requested that the terrorist case be deemed illegal and that the disciplinary proceedings against him be halted in a petition that was submitted to High Court. Argentina's former president and current vice president is on trial for corruption. The verdict is scheduled for later this year, but the prosecution's demands that she gets imprisoned have angered her or her supporters. Zahra Farjani has the details.
Several marches brought together thousands of people in Argentina in support of its former president and current vice president, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. The demonstrations come after prosecutor Diego Luciani requested a 12-year prison sentence and a ban on public office for alleged corruption during her government. Outside the vice president's home in Buenos Aires, hundreds of protesters clashed with police who used water cannons to try to disperse the demonstrators.
It's going to be historic. It never happened before. What they are doing with her is dictatorship. It's persecution. They're persecuting her without evidence because there is no evidence.
You might look at us and think we are all crazy, but that's not it. She is the mother who really stands up for us, the poor and the workers.
Cristina Fernández, who defended her supporters' right to protest, also considers herself a victim of persecution by sectors of the justice system that she links with her predecessor, Mauricio Macri. De Kirchner's opponent view the former president as symbolic of the corruption that has blighted Argentina. They want to prevent her standing again for president in next year's elections. The verdict on Cristina Kirchner is due later this year, and its outcome will divide the country by an increasingly unpleasant conflict.
Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the former Soviet Union, passed away at the age of 91. News agencies reported that he died after a long illness. Miriam Zian has the portrait.
Born in 1931, Mikhail Gorbachev passed away aged 91 in a hospital in Moscow. The former Soviet leader, who completed his law degree from Moscow State University in 1955, became the General Secretary of the Soviet Union Communist Party in 1985. Internationally, he reached arms control deals with the US, refused to intervene when Eastern European nations rose up against their communist rulers, and ended the Soviet war in Afghanistan that had raged since 1979. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1990 for the leading role he played in the radical changes in East-West relations. He was given the credit for removing the curtain that divided Europe since the World War II and for the reunification of Germany.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
In 1990, he became president of the Soviet Union until the country's dissolution in 1991.
We need more enterprise, more democracy, more organization and discipline. Then we will be able to bring perestroika up to the full speed and give new impetus to developing socialism.
However, in modern Russia, he has been on the fringes of politics, focusing on educational and humanitarian projects. Considered one of the key figures of the end of the 20th century, Gorbachev will remain in history as one who contributed, despite himself, to the fall of the communist regimes in Eastern Europe and the breakup of the Soviet Union. Following the announcement of his death on August 30th, tributes have been paid worldwide to him. Vladimir Putin has expressed his deepest condolences and said Gorbachev has had a huge impact on the course of history and found his own solutions to urgent problems, Likewise, Joe Biden, Emmanuel Macron, Boris Johnson, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, and many others described him as a rare leader and paid tributes to him. Gorbachev will be buried next to his wife in Moscow, a city where many prominent Russians rest in peace.
Well, that's it for today's World News. For more news stories, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.